Okay, so now to the point of whether or not we have any kind of factual information to deal with in terms of Legionnaires disease. Yes, we do. I was always fascinated by the code sheet, which had Freon listed on it on one side, and also the fact that every time I ask a question, and particularly as law departments were investigating their own work. Why wasn't this ever answered? Toward the end of my career or my tenure at the Brown and Williamson IWU Center, I discovered an intriguing document which had been admitted to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and this was a document that presented evidence that freon gas was definitely the culprit to be considered by as a unsafe product. At the same time, it had implicated the tobacco industry in the use of cigarettes, and as I have noted, this is a process called G13. G13 is used in both a large and a small capacity, but if you knew just how large, you would quake, I'm sure, and wonder why this is probably still going on. And the issue is the CFCs in terms of the environment and for tobacco use. It's implicating the use of residual freon gas inside a tobacco product, which is called the expanded tobacco product, and this is certainly has not. I can imagine that they would terminate this kind of very successful um, product and the use of tobacco just because of a master settlement agreement in the United States. This is worldwide. And so, considering the fact that it's worldwide, why not include Scotland and maybe Canada or Belgium or wherever as a source of the industrialized use of the product freon, which is a name applied to what DuPont discovered and used in the early 1930s, the first refrigerant. And so, what happened in the hearings, and also what was a particular concern of Lieutenant Commander Levangi, who had bona fides in the submarine issue, which was don't ever come near use your torch near a escaping freon gas and be smoking at the same time, or use any kind of catalyst which might be in that same situation in a closed environment. So Levangi had come to the conclusion, and this reached the people who, in shortly after the Legionnaires Disese, reached the tobacco lawyers, and lawyers who were not necessarily conspiratorial in their efforts, but they certainly were doing their job. I'm always fascinated by how corporate hats work. They turn on and then they turn off one way or another. But anyway, Levangi came to the conclusion, and in fact presented evidence into the body of the Safety Commission, Consumer Product Safety Commission. I believe that was the principal place. And he noted that there was liberated freon that possibly, more than likely, probably was the culprit in the massive event which occurred in the summer of the Legionnaires Disese at the Biltmore Hotel in Philadelphia. So the Freon to phosgene theory was basically a concept that had to do with the liberated Freon passing down into the areas where the Legionnaires were, and they were being exposed to it. And at the same time, there was a tobacco product being released new to the industry, at least for the years it had been active in developing the concept of tobacco, expanded tobacco product called Merit. And this appears in the hearings. It shows that they were sampling, and by sampling they were leaving loads of tobacco cigarettes and probably cartons, I don't know, but this was certainly one of the questions that was part of the hearings, and it was sort of buried in one area. But the conclusions of Lavagny were that tobacco companies did not want a fully blown investigation into his thoughts and into a group of other mavericks, what I call mavericks. Well, for one, the tobacco companies had been using this product, this kind of product, which was expanded tobacco. They've been using it for years, and it was liberated into the atmosphere. The Freon liberated into the atmosphere in vast quantities, apparently, and going back into the 60s. I'm of the opinion that that in itself is sufficient to be damaging in terms of any kind of useful belief that there is a benefit. But as to the master settlement having any effect on this is a worldwide usage of Freon, and whether it's Freon 11, Freon 12, or R12 or R11, whatever, or the new, whatever they've replaced it with, it's pretty much the same thing, as I said. So Lavagny had identified this, and that there were two parts. One, that the actual Freon was residual, or there was a Freon residue which remained inside the tobacco, inside the expanded tobacco, because obviously when you freeze it, you're going to leave some of it. And this could be as much as 5 ppm, and someone smokes it, and basically there's probably more of an effect on the side stream, so and then in the actual inhaling, but they're both terrible effects. And so in estimating the fallout, there was from if the Legionnaires Disese had come out as predicted, or as actual a relationship between the Lavagny theory and the other people who were supportive of that theory, and eventually ends up in 1977 in the Consumer Product Safety Commission petition, and a petition by Lavagny, which is acknowledged as by one of the chief members of the Committee on Safety, and this safety concept is basically it provides the proof. Yeah, this is true. So what we're looking at is what happened in 1976 and what happens today, and how much time has gone by, and how much is really what changed, and what was the outcome of the all the throughout the years, and how many times did we actually see a Legionnaires disease, and something that's close to identifying that. It was virtually buried. There's nothing that is. It's sort of like the use of the word addiction. The World Health Organization came up with the idea years ago and adopted habituation. Well, that actually comes from the 1964 Surgeon General's report. Is it an addiction or is it habituation? Well, Carl C. Seltzer of Harvard came up with the idea that, well, we'll call it habituation. Anyway, the same concepts have been buried, so to speak, and there is a difference between what the CDC comes up with and what Levangi comes up with and what the Consumer Products Development, Consumer Products Safety Commission decides, and yet it's also buried. But the lawyers were very much interested in, all the industry lawyers were very much interested in what came about. And at the same time, Brown and Williamson was intrigued by the idea of incorporating it. Why in the world would you pile on this kind of thing? Because you have two problems to worry about. One, you have the environmentalists, which were very strongly associating themselves with what's happening to our ozone layer, and then you have some fairly intelligent points of view that were developing along the lines of CFC destruction. And then later on, you have the Nobel laureates actually making proof and then getting their Nobel prizes for the CFCs being the principal cause of the ozone depletion and its layers. But anyway, from the facts that you examine at the end of in August of 1976, you're looking conspiratorially at why did Levangi get nowhere, and yet it was confirmed, even acknowledged by the lawyers at Brown and Williamson, one lawyer at Brown and Williamson at least, who was the head lawyer, and saying, we're investigating this theory, and apparently they're believing it at the Consumer Product Commission. So what this boils down to is, okay, what are our concerns here? Because at that time, Brown and Williamson was thinking of using this same device, this same methodology, the concept of converting tobacco into expanded tobacco by using Freon 11, a very unstable gas. And then, worrying about the residual effects, which were inside the tobacco product that was created. And then secondly, what the environmentalists might feel about these CFCs, which were expelled into the environment. And so in 1977, there was a pretty sound investigation into what the originators of this device created, and that was R.J. Reynolds. What they knew, what they had proven, and apparently to the lawyers at Brown and Williamson, apparently to the lawyer who was investigating this, and this is a public document, so there's no problem in investigating. Some of it's public, some of it is probably in my head, but the fascinating part is that that Reynolds really had not done any long-term studies on what the effects were on people. So let's investigate that, but I'll end here, and so we can be I get into what they did and what they didn't do. And so I'll have two parts to this one issue about the Legionnaires' disease, and so we'll